Welcome, everyone, to a deep dive into something truly fascinating and incredibly impactful unfolding right now in India. We're talking about a massive, immediate shift that's fundamentally reshaping how a nation of over a billion people interacts with digital entertainment, and critically, with money. Yeah, imagine this with me. It's maybe a quiet Sunday afternoon in Mumbai. You've got someone like, let's call him Raj, a 28-year-old software engineer. He's absorbed in building his fantasy cricket team on an app. He puts down a modest sum, carefully selects his players, maybe mixing stats with his gut feeling, and he's dreaming of winning enough cash to cover his weekend expenses. Sounds like pretty harmless fun, right? But what happens if that initial thrill, that small wager, slowly, maybe surely, morphs into a daily compulsion, starts chipping away at savings, building debt, creating real tension at home? Now try to imagine Raj's experience, but multiplied by millions across India. That's really the scale we're looking at here.
It's precisely that widespread scenario, those very real consequences playing out in countless homes that directly led to what felt like a whirlwind week in India's parliament. We just witnessed the Promotion and Regulation of Online Gaming Bill 2025 essentially zip through the Lok Sabha on August 20th and then the Rajya Sabha the very next day. And by August 22nd, it landed on the president's desk and bang, it became law. This isn't just some minor regulatory adjustment. It's an immediate, profound pivot for an entire industry.
And speed of it was just stunning, wasn't it? Almost overnight. Within hours of the bill becoming law, major platforms like Dream11, Mobile Premier League, MPL, and Winzo had to basically slam the brakes on their cash-based features.
Yeah.
Users suddenly found themselves looking at these stark notifications about withdrawals, game shutdowns, complete platform changes. It's not just about a few apps closing down. It feels like a complete reevaluation of online entertainment in India.
Absolutely. And our mission today is really to unpack this incredibly complex puzzle for you. We'll explore why this ban happened so swiftly, so comprehensively, what it means for the millions who are playing these games daily, the companies that built these multi-billion-dollar digital empires, and crucially, what it signals for the future of gaming in, let's face it, one of the world's biggest and fastest-growing digital markets.
Okay, before we dig into the ban itself,
Yeah.
it feels crucial to understand just how massive online gaming became in India. How did this whole phenomenon, almost like that Diwali firecracker you mentioned, just ignite across the country?
Yeah, you're right to set the stage there. It really began with accessibility. The early 2010s saw smartphones become, well, widely available. And then the really crucial part, data plans became incredibly affordable, especially after initiatives like Jio's launch back in 2016. Suddenly, almost everyone, from college students in bustling Delhi to farmers in rural Tamil Nadu, had the internet literally at their fingertips. And where the internet went, well, games naturally followed.
The scale is just staggering. By 2024, India boasted over 568 million gamers. Just wrap your head around that number for a second. That's the largest gaming market globally, 1 in every 5 online gamers worldwide. It's more people playing games than the entire population of Europe. And within that massive landscape, Real Money Games, or RMG, they were the undisputed stars, weren't they?
Yeah, they really were. And what's fascinating here is that these weren't just your typical casual mobile games you'd play to pass 5 minutes. These were often quite intricate platforms where you'd pay an entry fee or deposit actual cash to compete, with the winners taking home real prizes. So we're talking about fancy sports like assembling a virtual cricket team on Dream11, or popular card games like Rummy and Poker on platforms like Rummy Circle.
So, beyond just the smartphones and the cheap data, what was the secret sauce? Why did RMG explode so powerfully in India? Beyond the obvious love for cricket, what else made these games so uniquely appealing?
Well, you hit on it with cricket. I mean, it's not just a sport. It's practically a religion in India. Fantasy apps just masterfully tapped into that national passion. They let fans feel like they were team owners, strategists. A 2022 report showed fantasy sports alone had 180 million users, and people spending an average of Rs 2,300 annually. That's significant engagement. But also, don't underestimate the celebrity endorsements. They played a massive role. Remember Virat Kohli promoting MPL Shah Rukh Khan for My 11 Surfing?
Oh, yeah, they were everywhere.
Exactly. Ads were everywhere, especially during things like IPL matches, subtly suggesting this easy, fun path to quick money. The whole industry was booming. It raked in $2.7 billion in revenue in 2024, with RMG accounting for a staggering 85% of that. And this attracted huge foreign investment over Rs 25,000 crore poured in, creating unicorns like Dream Sports, the parent company of Dream11.
So it was this glittering, high-growth sector seemed unstoppable. But beneath all that economic success, the celebrity endorsements, the cracks were definitely starting to show, weren't they? What were some of the really troubling stories or trends that the government just couldn't ignore anymore?
Indeed. And these weren't just isolated incidents. We saw a growing tide of deeply troubling, often heartbreaking accounts. Stories of addiction, like a student in Hyderabad losing 5 lakh rupees. That's a lot of money in college fees on online poker. Or a family in Kolkata shattered because a father's rummy debts led to suicide. The official data was stark. 32 suicides linked directly to gaming addiction in just 31 months. These weren't just individual tragedies, they really highlighted a systemic vulnerability. And that forced the government to fundamentally reassess its stance, shifting focus from potential revenue to an absolute priority on public welfare.
And they weren't just watching this happen. Even before this outright ban, the government started sending some pretty clear signals, didn't they? Warning shots, maybe?
Oh, absolutely. Big ones. In 2023, they slapped that massive 28% goods and services tax, the GST, not just on the platform fees, which was the old way, but on the full deposit amount for RMG. That was a monumental shift. And it led to these enormous retrospective tax notices over Rs 1.5 lakh crore in total for companies like Gamescraft and Dream11.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a clear, unmissable signal. But the 2025 bill, as we've seen, that's the full canon, moving beyond just taxation to an outright ban on certain types of games.
Okay, so let's dive into the specifics of this new promotion and regulation of online gaming bill 2025. It really feels like the government is drawing a very, very clear line in the sand here, distinguishing between different kinds of digital entertainment. What exactly does this law categorize? What's in and what's out?
Right. It's important to understand it's not really an anti-gaming bill at its core. It's more like anti-gambling in disguise. And it categorizes games very clearly into 4 main types. First, you've got esports. These are your competitive video games. Think PUBG, FIFA, Valorant, played in tournaments. Think of them like digital Olympics. Success is based purely on skill, not luck. The bill actually promotes these. It envisions them as a path to build careers, national pride for India, maybe even hosting global events.
Okay, so esports are encouraged. What's next?
Then we have social games. These are your casual fun games like Candy Crush, Ludo King, online chess. Crucially, no money involved, just pure entertainment or maybe skill building. These get a full green light. They're encouraging apps that bring friends together virtually.
Makes sense.
Third, educational games. Apps designed to teach math, languages, science through play. The government explicitly wants more of these, hoping to boost learning, particularly in remote areas.
Right. And the fourth category, the controversial one.
Exactly. Number 4 is online money games, RMG. These are the ones squarely in the crosshairs. Basically, any game where you pay to play and have a chance to win cash. So fantasy sports, rummy, poker, even some trivia apps where money is involved, they are banned outright. That old, long-standing debate about whether rummy is a skill game or gambling.
Yeah, that went on for years.
That's now definitively over, according to this law. If money is on the line as a prize based on the outcome, it's out.
So the message is crystal clear on what kind of games are banned. But how does the government actually plan to enforce this? Are there new mechanisms, new teeth in this law?
Absolutely. The bill establishes a whole new regulatory body under the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, or MeITI. Its specific job is to oversee compliance and investigate violations. And critically, banks and payment apps, think UPI, Paytm, are now legally prohibited from processing any transactions related to RMG. They can also block websites. Officers even get powers to search premises without warrants if they suspect illegal gaming operations.
And I understand the penalties for not complying are pretty severe.
They are indeed very stiff. Offering RMG could lead to up to 3 years in jail and a fine of Rs 1 crore. Advertising them. That could mean up to 2 years in jail and a Rs 50 lakh fine. Repeat offenders face even harsher terms, and importantly, these offenses are non-bailable.
Wow. But what about the players themselves?
Interestingly, the players are not punished. They're largely seen as victims in this legislation. However, influencers and celebrities who endorse these games, they could face significant legal heat. That's a big shift.
Yeah, definitely. And when you hear top officials like IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw describing this as a responsibility to protect society from evils like chit funds, those unregulated schemes notorious for fraud, or Prime Minister Modi tweeting that the bill saves society from harmful effects while boosting innovation, you really get a sense of the government's strong, almost moralistic stance here.
So when we look at this really drastic measure, this sort of nuclear option, as some call it, what were the primary harms the government was trying to tackle?
Well, the government highlighted a whole cocktail of harms, expert. And the addiction epidemic was certainly right at the top of that list. It was devastating lives and families. There was that NITI Aayog report from 2022 finding that 25% of gamers showed addictive behaviors, and young people were hit hardest. Easy access via phones meant kids as young as 12 were apparently depositing pocket money, leading to debt, severe mental health issues, the reports of suicides, family breakdowns, they just piled up. Government figures even indicated companies had effectively stripped $2.3 billion from users through, let's say, addictive game designs.
And closely linked to that personal toll, I imagine, was the sheer financial devastation we talked about earlier. The algorithms in many of these RNG platforms, they're often designed, much like slot machines, to keep you hooked, right? To optimize for engagement and ultimately your spending. You might win small amounts initially, gets you excited, but the losses can become catastrophic very quickly. Economically disadvantaged groups seem to suffer disproportionately. We heard those harrowing stories of farmers pawning land just to chase poker stakes. These weren't just isolated incidents. They really represented a growing societal crisis that, it seems, fundamentally shifted the government's calculus away from economic gain towards urgent public protection.
And there was a third critical concern, too, wasn't there? National security.
Yes, that was mentioned. With many RMG apps having foreign ties, there were growing fears about potential money laundering channels. The bill also explicitly mentions psychological and public health harms, particularly targeting the youth. So it wasn't just individual stories, but a perceived broader systemic risk they identified.
Okay, but of course, this move hasn't exactly been welcomed with open arms by everyone, especially the industry.
No, definitely not. Industry groups like the All India Gaming Federation quickly wrote to Home Minister Amit Shah. They argued that the ban ignores previous court rulings that specifically classified fantasy sports as skill-based, not gambling. And they warn quite strongly that this blanket ban will simply push users towards illegal offshore sites where there are even fewer protections and absolutely no oversight. That's a major concern.
But then you have supporters like Vishal Gondal, the founder of Jukiki, praising it. He said, too many young lives lost to addiction and debt. And IT expert Subhamal Pattarji put it very succinctly, healthy society must override profits. So clearly we're seeing really strong opinions on both sides, reflecting this complex tension between economic growth and social responsibility. Now, this ban isn't just a moral or regulatory statement. It feels like an economic earthquake. Expert, the real money gaming sector was, as you said, a behemoth, employing hundreds of thousands, contributing significantly. What's the immediate fallout looking like?
Yeah, the economic impact is immense, no question. We're talking about a sector employing around 200,000 people directly and indirectly across over 400 companies. It was a significant contributor to the national tax revenue, about our 20,000 crore annually. And it attracted substantial foreign direct investment, around $2.5 billion. Projections even saw it doubling in value to $3.6 billion by 2028. All of that just up in the air now. It creates this massive void.
And the impact was, well, instant. Within hours, Dream11, MPL, PokerBaazi, Zupi, they all halted their RMG features. Nazara Technologies, a listed company with investments in the sector, saw its shares plummet nearly 13% on August 20th alone. You look at LinkedIn now, it's flooded with job searches from employees fearing massive layoffs. It's a really sudden, dramatic shift for these companies and their entire workforce.
Yeah, consider Dream11 again. Backed by Tiger Global, they sponsored Team India's cricket jersey for a whopping Rs 358 crore. That sponsorship is now seriously in jeopardy right before the Asia Cup 2025. It leaves the BCCI scrambling for new partners. Cricket overall, with its huge reliance on RMG sponsorships, could see a significant funding dip across the board.
And the government's response to that economic hit?
Well, the government, for its part, acknowledges a potential revenue loss, maybe Rs 15,000, 20,000 crore, but they're calling it a calculated decision for public interest. However, the industry keeps warning loudly about the black markets emerging. The ban will push users to offshore platforms lacking safeguards, they say, and that concern connects directly to those longer-term challenges we need to think about.
That's a critical point. While there's this clear economic devastation for the RMG sector, is there any kind of silver lining here? Could other parts of the gaming industry actually benefit from this drastic change?
Possibly, yes. On the flip side, there's a potential silver lining, particularly for esports. With clear government backing now, India might actually focus on producing global stars in competitive gaming. You know, much like China has done with League of Legends champions, companies like NODWIN Gaming sound optimistic. They're advocating for really clear definitions to avoid any lingering confusion between skill-based esports and the now banned RMG. The government has definitely signaled its intention to nurture this specific segment.
Right, and this isn't India's first attempt to grapple with gaming rules, is it? There's a history here.
Oh, far from it. The Public Gambling Act from way back in the 1950s banned betting, but online gaming just existed in this legal gray area for decades. You had courts in the 1990s even ruling that rummy was a game of skill, not chance, and that decision significantly opened the doors for RMG to flourish later on.
Then more recently, by 2021, states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka tried their own bans, right?
They did, but the court struck them down, primarily because they failed to properly distinguish between games of skill and games of chance, that old legal sticking point. Even Modi's 2023 amendments proposed things like self-regulation, KYC checks, transparency, but then came the big GST hike, which was a strong signal of tougher times ahead. The 2025 bill, however, just overrides all of that previous state-level action and establishes one uniform national law.
It does feel quite final.
This national ban, though, it does bring historical parallels to mind, like the Prohibition era in the U.S. Good intentions, maybe, but bootleggers thrived. Or China in 2021 banned online gaming for minors, limited their playtime, but saw underground markets grow. It raises that important question. Will India face similar challenges with enforcement and the rise of black markets?
That's the real million-dollar question, isn't it? And legal challenges are certainly looming, regardless of enforcement issues. Experts are suggesting the ban might violate Article 91 of the Constitution, which protects the right to conduct business. Gaming firms are already talking to lawyers, preparing for potential Supreme Court appeals. So, yeah, the legal battle seems far from over. While those legal and economic battles are just starting to unfold, it's so important to remember the individuals, the people at the heart of this sweeping policy change. Expert, can you bring us some of those real-world perspectives? How is this law actually impacting lives on the ground?
Of course. Let's take someone like Priya, a 35-year-old homemaker in Bengaluru. She used to play rummy online for what she called pocket money, maybe winning Rs 500, 1,000 a week. She described it as fun, like a hobby. But then she lost Rs 10,000 in 1 month and she quit. For her, she says the ban is good, it stops temptation. Her experience really underscores that protective aspect the government is aiming for.
But then you get a completely different perspective from someone like Arjun, a 22-year-old developer who was just laid off from an RMG startup. He told us, "I build features for fair play. Now I'm jobless overnight. Why not regulate instead of just banning?" His frustration really highlights the economic cost and feeds into the industry's argument for more nuanced regulation.
Exactly. And then there's Vishwanath, a parent in Chennai, who shared his profound relief. He said, "My son skipped studies for fantasy leagues. This law saves families." His voice echoes that primary concern of societal well-being that drove the legislation.
And the public conversation around this, especially online, is just buzzing, often quite heated. On X, formerly Twitter, reactions are pouring in constantly. You see posts like, "Blanket ban ignores SC rulings on skill games. Regulate, don't regress." There was even a rumor, quickly fact-checked as false, about Rakesh Shindramala's wife selling Nazara shares just before the bill, implying insider trading. It just shows how charged the atmosphere is. What's clear is that this conversation is far from settled, and emotions are running really high.
Yeah, and industry leaders like Akshat Rathi from Anudwin, they continue to emphasize the need for clear distinctions needed between esports and RMG. It highlights that ongoing desire for clarity, for a defined pathway forward, at least for the skill-based gaming industry.
So, okay, as the dust begins to settle just a little on this seismic shift, India's gaming future looks, well, distinctly dual-toned. Real money gaming as we knew it seems essentially dead, legally at least. But this potentially opens up a whole new era where esports and casual games could genuinely flourish, especially with these government plans to promote tournaments via the Youth Affairs and Sports Ministry.
Indeed. You could imagine Indian teams dominating global leagues, creating stars in virtual arenas, much like we see in traditional sports. That's the optimistic vision anyway. But the challenges, they remain immense. How effectively will the government enforce this, especially against offshore apps accessible via VPNs? Will users simply migrate to those foreign sites, creating that very unregulated black market everyone's worried about? And crucially, can the growth of esports, however promising, truly fill the economic void left behind? Can it replace the hundreds of thousands of jobs potentially lost? These are huge questions.
And many global examples, like the UK, for instance, they regulate gambling with robust licenses, age checks, rather than these outright bans. Perhaps India might learn from those models, maybe amend the bill down the line as it navigates these complex waters.
It's possible. Ultimately, this ban is a bold bet by India, a massive wager, really, on societal well-being over significant tangible economic gains. It feels like a pivotal cricket match still in play, full of twists and turns yet to come.
So, as you reflect on this deep dive, what do you think? Will this ultimately be seen as a decisive win for public health, successfully tackling addiction and financial ruin? Or will it prove to be a net loss for innovation, hindering economic growth and maybe inadvertently boosting those unregulated black markets? Only time will truly tell, but one thing feels absolutely certain. In India, the game has well and truly changed forever.